Hi, and welcome to the Design Find podcast, a space where women are interviewed and in conversation to discuss the highs, lows, and everything in between about being a woman in design. The Design Find has new episodes every Monday, so make sure you come back every week. You can find more on the Design Find podcast Instagram. Hope you enjoy this episode. Hi, and welcome to the Design Find the podcast. Today we have Sanjana, and she's going to be sharing with us her story in the design field. So welcome.
Hi, Nicole. Thank you.
So to start off, can you kind of introduce yourself, where you're from, what you're doing now, and what you're doing in the design field?
Sure. As you already said, my name is Sanjana. I'm currently based out of Barcelona. I'm an interior architect, a social designer, and an experience designer. I'm currently finishing my second master's degree in ephemeral architecture and temporary spaces. Prior to that, I had done my master's from UAL in London in design research. I used to live in New York for 10 years, where I was working as an interior architect in hospitality. And prior to that, I went to Pratt Institute for my bachelor's in interior architecture.
Wow, so you obviously have a lot of experience. Let's kind of start by going to the beginning. What initially got you interested in interior design and architecture, and what kind of brought you through to the places that you've been now?
I feel like to begin with, I definitely didn't know if I wanted to do interior architecture or not, but I knew I wanted to be in the design field. So uh, in my bachelor's at Pratt, I joined in foundation year. And what is really good about foundation year is that in case you don't know exactly what you want to do, you get to explore few different like basic um, courses that serve as a foundation for any course that you're going to take up. And through that, I found my interest in more so in interior or industrial design, and then looking at just my general interests in reading and stuff like that, I decided interior design would be the better way to move ahead. And I'm glad I did select that, because it seems like it was the right choice for me. But obviously, at the very beginning, I did not know that it was just me exploring, what design had to offer.
And what were kind of the things that you loved about design initially and that really got you interested? Yeah.
So I feel like what got me interested in design initially, and what I love in design even now, like what's my driving factor, has always been the same. It has never changed. And it's been about how design can make you feel a certain way. Like it can enhance the way a person is feeling. It can enhance the conditions a person is living in. And I'm not just talking about this as an interior designer in terms of luxury interiors, but just in terms of design thinking, really. It can really enhance someone's well-being. And I feel like that is what I have always been interested in. And that still happens to be my driving factor.
I completely agree. There's so many things that you can kind of get your hands in with design. And it, for a lot of people, like you included, it just sparks something of creativity, which is so special that many other fields might not have the same feeling. What did you study in university and how did that go out? Or if you completely switched to what you're doing now, either with you said you were doing your master's, but also if you did any previous jobs.
Right. So in my bachelor's, I did interior design. Uh, and then after I graduated, I was working in hospitality. Now, of course, that was a switch in what I studied and what I was working in terms of application. You know, when you're in school, you're just focusing on design, right? You're trying to get the best design out there, to think most creatively. You know, you might even try to make the floor levitate because that's your time to, like, you know, be creative. You don't have any constraints. And once I was in the work field, it was an interesting switch in understanding that the world doesn't really work that way. There are a lot of constraints. There is a lot of like government licensings that need to be done for any small thing, you know. You have to deal with clients' temperaments and stuff like that. So I wouldn't say that. I think it wasn't like it completely switched, but it was a whole nother side to it that I didn't learn in school. I grew to really like hospitality, and I feel like I was doing well in it. But when I was in my bachelor's, I grew an interest for social design, which was basically designing for like social change. So my thesis was about a refugee shelter that I had built. It got picked up by the IKEA Foundation to be produced. And I felt like I was really lacking that sense of working in the larger, like, you know, working for the social good when I was doing my job. So I started doing like competitions on the side where I could brainstorm design solutions and stuff like that, which led me to my first master's, which was about spatial design research, which in which I studied, or rather researched for a year, how you know, how does human behavior change in a certain space, and how that was helpful for me was, for example, you know, there are a lot of public structures that are unused. You know, why are they unused? Why isn't the public using them? You know, what is it that you need? How does the design of a neighborhood uh, you know, increase the social awareness within the neighborhood and their livelihood, along with, you know, uh, basically that is summarizing it, but we went much into detail of that. And then in my second master's, I'm doing ephemeral architecture, which is basically temporary architecture. Again, going back and looking at these public spaces that can be constructed temporarily, or perhaps even like design installations, pop-ups and stuff like that. A project that I'm currently working on is, I'm actually building a temporary playground in the parking lot in this underserved neighborhood in Barcelona right now. So I feel like while it may seem like my interests have switched a lot, I feel like the interests have stayed the same. It's just a way of going deeper.
All those projects sound so inspiring, and it's great that you're using your tools for the good. What are some major causes that you're primarily focused on and that you really want to see a big change in the future?
I feel like, you know, especially with COVID, I felt like that was a big design problem that we all came to realize. Like, you know, suddenly people were working from home when that, you know, homes were not designed to be worked from. It was really affecting the mental well-being of people. Um, if you take restaurants into account, you know, restaurants basically had to be shut down because of the way they were designed, right? Because early on, people were like almost too, like the way the floor plan set in a restaurant or whatever, like there are a lot of people in a place, there's not enough divisions, they're not adaptable to to you know, unforeseen circumstances. And I feel like as of now I'm focusing my research on adaptability. I'm not saying it's for COVID, but I feel like COVID has given us a precedent to learn from, that things could change. And you know, uh, our spaces need to be way more adaptable than they are, because the spaces need to fit our needs and not our needs fit into the spaces.
What are some tips or things that you would give to people if they're designing space right now or a restaurant or kind of just anything that you would think would be better suited for COVID and just like the future of our world and what the world has come to since COVID?
I feel like it might seem, when we think about design and COVID, it might seem really grim with like, PVC screens and like hand sanitizers everywhere. But I don't think it has to be that way. I feel like it is an opportunity almost to change the way we look at design. And what I would suggest um, to people is to really start leaning into the idea of adaptability. I have conversations with architects even now, like for example, if you're designing an office and they're like, oh my God, but COVID is over. We can go back to designing the normal way. I don't think that is what we should take back from this experience. COVID might be over. There might be something else. I don't mean to sound like the end days here or anything like that with that, but you never know. So we should always design keeping adaptability in mind. I feel like for a lot of years we designed uh, thinking that the way we see things are the way they are, um, but it looks like we're moving into a more fluid section of design.
What are some things that you personally like to incorporate in your designs that you think make your designs unique, but also having kind of a new element to them?
I feel like it's really important for me to understand, the pattern or the behavior of the consumer using that space. I would hate to build a park the way a park is built without understanding the sensitivity of the actual residents in the park, and how is it that they like to use a park. I've seen in a lot of instances where a lot of things are prototyped and fit into space, and obviously this differs from culture to culture. I don't think there is one answer fits all when it comes to design. So it's really understanding the pattern of behavior of the user. I do this when I'm doing residential projects as well. Instead of jumping right into design, I actually workshop with the clients. Instead of having them tell me, you know this is what they want in their home, I try to interact with them in such a way that it could give me some insight into their life and I could design around that. Like, a very easy example would be, in my last workshop I asked my client how he would like to spend an ideal Sunday afternoon, let's say. And the things I learned from that conversation was something that I would have never even known while reading the brief. And obviously, it was important for me to design around that. But had I not had that conversation or looked for that pattern of behavior, I wouldn't. I wouldn't have been able to provide this client with something that would give him so much joy.
What are some things that you personally do that you think can elevate any space that anyone can do in any area or store that you think that can really just make it a new space and make it feel different?
I feel like in terms of interiors, light is really, really important. I'm always looking out for the light, trying to increase the amount of light that we can get into the space. Adding a lot of greenery, I feel like helps a lot, making the space really airy. Adding some, subtle patterns and things like rugs and, cushions and stuff like that can really elevate a space without you even knowing.
Now moving kind of to more your story personally, You talked about social design. Can you talk a little bit about more about that and what that is to start for some of them? So for some of us who don't really know.
So, social design is basically, as the name suggests, really only designing for social good. And by social good, I mean like it's more so like design thinking and problem solving, really, uh, that you solve through design. For example, as I mentioned about the refugee shelter, now there were certain problems that I saw with the current, refugee shelters that are being used. They seem very temporary, but people end up living in that shelter for like, 9 to 10 months, which is not so temporary after all, so it's like problems like that you pick up and try to solve through design. For example, I worked on this one project in Kathmandu after the earthquakes there, where a school had fallen down, and we created a temporary structure um, for a playful, like outdoor school. That in its sense was problem solving in a different sense as to how do you procure material in a place that has certain priorities. Right after an earthquake, the land is unstable. How do you fix that? How do you make this experience where the kids are going to school not feel so makeshift after all? So I guess social design really is about picking up these problems that you see around the world and trying to solve them through design, because I truly believe that there are a lot of problems that would be solved with good design solutions.
Um, and what types of things or goals that you have in the future that you wish to accomplish in terms of social design?
I feel like I am hoping to start in some way working with the government in improving the socio-economic statuses of some underprivileged neighborhoods by proposing, hopefully, you know, temporary design fixes that can show a measurable change in certain underprivileged neighborhoods. For example, with the park that I'm the playground that I'm creating right now, that is placed in an underprivileged neighborhood, which would hopefully bring in some good. But as a goal for myself, I would like to be working with the government constantly on more projects like this.
What types of things in the future do you have in mind for in terms of what you're more going to be focused on? More social design, more architecture, more interior? What do you think is more of your path in terms of the design field?
I feel like I would be doing myself a disservice by choosing just one. I have come to realize after 6 years in the field that I do like interior design, but just because I like doing luxury interior design doesn't mean that I have to give up doing social design altogether. It is really important to me, so I don't think I see myself picking up one thing and just going ahead full steam with just one direction. I feel like I do want to keep exploring interior design and social design, um, with the skills that I've picked up, and let each of the fields influence one or the other, because I feel like um, in order it would be doing me no good to leave one of my passions behind. I feel like they're not exclusive of each other.
And what is something you want to change about the design fields or something that you want to work more on personally?
That's an interesting question. Something I'd like to change about the design field is, again, I feel like when we talk about interior design and architecture and just design in general, for some reason, the perception is always like luxury, like all design, or like luxury design solutions. I would like to change that conversation to more towards that, also including, design problem solving for social goods. A lot of these big government organizations don't even have that many designers, that are part of the decision making, which I think is time we start seeing a change in terms of even policy making for that matter. I think a personal goal of mine would be to just keep moving forward and trying to balance both the social design and the interior architecture path that I'm on, and not letting either one of them fall through the cracks, really.
What is something that you would say to your past self and also your future self, um, in terms of keeping on your passion for design or maybe things that you would have changed about the way you went about it?
I feel like when I was younger and I had, like, not younger per se, but like when I was in college and I was, kind of moving on to the social design part of my work. I was finding it difficult to find a paying job in that. And then there was a point in time that I felt really disheartened, where I was like, okay, this is it. This is where that ends. And I wish I could tell my younger self that, you can do what you want to do. Like you don't need, you what I'm trying to say is you don't need someone to give you a project, um, in order to actually do it. You can pick up what it is that you want to do and do it by yourself and not worry about people recognizing your effort, because that will shine through. Um, Also, I wish I had better time management when I was in at Pratt, for my bachelor's degree. I think that would have helped me a whole lot. But yeah, I think those are two things that I would try to remind my younger self.
I think especially the time management is something
Yeah,
that people would all agree on, but that's part of life. That's how you
that-
grow from it. And
definitely.
what do you think your style is in terms of design or the spaces you design?
I don't, honestly, I don't feel like I have a particular style. I mean, personally, how I would design my own house, I'd like it to be very neutral and airy and sunny and with plants and all of that. But when it comes to my projects, I don't think I have like a certain design style. I really, again, try to go back to the pattern of behavior of whom I'm designing for and try to fit that in. I feel like a lot of young designers, really define their style at a very early age and are not open to a lot else. And I feel like that could potentially be a mistake, because again, you are designing not for yourself, you're designing for a client, and you need to design, you know what your brief asks you to.
What is something that usually you would learn in university about design or when you're studying design that you think is not practical when you're actually applying it or something that you never use? Like it could be a
I,
theory or just a practice.
I feel like when I was at first I was very frustrated about it, But I feel like I've come around to understand it now. At first, when I was in design school and we did all these projects, I felt like almost none of them could be constructed in the real world because we really never got into the details of their construction, and or ever thought about a budget when we're in school. And then suddenly you're working and there's all of that to be done, and you're just like, excuse me, this is not the designer that I was for the last 4 years. But I feel like what that allows you to do is it allows you to express yourself, find your design identity in the 4 years that you are in school, um, which is helpful. But yeah, I feel like a lot that has to be done in the real world, like construction administration, the bidding of a project, even how to get a project for that matter, is something that you're not really taught in school.
What is your advice to future designers, people who again want to be involved in social design? Just anything you would like to say to kind of give some inspiration.
I would just say be observant. Like, I feel like the best way to learn design is to just observe how people are using a space, observe how things have been designed and why they've been designed for a certain reason. I feel like once you start looking at things in a way of why was this done and why was it done this way, you'll start getting a lot more answers, and it will make your design journey much easier.
And what is your biggest achievement in the design field?
Oh, that's it. I feel like my biggest achievement would be the refugee shelter that I was talking about. It I
What
was
was it
really
like doing, like designing for that? Designing, you said you previously did hotels, which is obviously very luxury. It's about looking good. How was it a switched mentality or different necessities needed for a refugees shelter, which is obviously like that's their bare necessities, that's what
right.
they need, versus coming to like a luxurious hotel?
I mean, that's what I was saying. I feel like at the end of the day, both projects needed a problem to be solved. Even if it is a luxurious project with a lot of budget, there is a there is an inherent problem that you're solving, right? It was just a different problem in the cases of the refugee project. So I feel like mentally there's not that much. Obviously you're researching a lot more in the other case because I guess hospitality precedents are much easier to find. But I feel like the biggest shift was just how gratifying the other one was, as opposed to a luxury, like finishing up a luxury restaurant didn't felt really good, to be honest, but not as gratifying as, feeling like you actually made a difference the way things work.
I completely agree.
But in terms of the sorry, I was just saying that in terms of the process, I just agree. I just feel like both are design problems that need a solution. So it's not like you can be equipped to do one and not the other.
What projects do you find the most challenging?
I actually, unpopular opinion, but I actually find residential projects really challenging. Because or it that may just be because of my own process, but really trying to understand how I feel a sense of responsibility, like when I'm doing a residential project, because it feels like this is someone's not someone's business. This is a place somebody is going to live in for a very long time. They're putting in a lot of their own personal money into this, and I want to give them a product that they would be happy living in every day. I wouldn't want to create something that they wake up frustrated with me, on every day. So I personally feel like the stakes are much higher in a residential project, but I know that is unpopular opinion. But that's just how I feel.
And lastly, where can the listeners find you if you have a LinkedIn or another place that people can contact you to get more information?
Sure, I have a website. I can send it to you. It's sanjanaparamansdesign.com. I also have a work Instagram, PRMHNS. I can send that to you as well. And they can also find me on LinkedIn. But yeah,
Well, thank you so much for coming on. It was great to hear your story.
great talking to you, Nicole.
Bye. Thank you. Hey, I hope you loved this episode. If you did, rate and review on Apple Podcast and Spotify, or send it to people who you would think would be interested in listening in. You can learn more about the guests in the show notes or on the Design Find Instagram. The Design Find podcast is under the Entrepreneurs Network.